Welcome back. In this video, we're going to upgrade our last example. We're going to add some features and stuff, so stay tuned. Currently, our form is not neatly formatted. As you can see there, things are just, there's no spaces in between. It's just not neat. So this is where we can use tables. Tables are perfect for this. So we're going to be adding more code, so do not be alarmed. Remember, we said for a table we use the table tag, so we're going to input the table here. We're going to move this inside to show that it's inside this table. So let's save it, refresh. We haven't done much yet. We need to enter the first row. So in the first row, we want this entire, the label and the control to be in the first row. So it's the label and the control itself. We want that in. We don't need the BR tag anymore. So this is inside the first row. Let's make this bigger. So these are now in the same row, but then we haven't done much of a difference yet. So let's just visualize this. We enter the table. So in the first row, now we have the employee type and we have the control. But what we need to do is separate them using different columns. So this we want it to be in its own column, but in the same row. And in this we want it to be in its own column, but in the same row. So let's go back to the code. So we said we're going to insert this in its own column using the TD tags. Also going to enter this in its own column. So now this is in its own column. Let's move this in, save it, refresh. Now username is in its own column and this is in its own column. Let's display the border so we can see what's happening. Save it, refresh. Now as you can see there, now this is in the first one, this is in the second column. So we're going to be adding like this. Same with the second one. Let's visualize this. You want the email here. You want to insert the email in its own row, not in this row, in a different row. And within that row, we want to insert the email in its own column and this in its own column like that. Let's go back to the code. So we're going to insert these two in a different row. This is how you enter the row. And within this row, we want two columns inside. So we're going to insert this in the first column. And don't forget to close it. And we want this to be in its own column as well. We save this, we go to the browser, refresh. Now it's neatly formatted. So when we remove the border, so as you can see, these things are now nicely formatted like that. So we're going to do this for each and every control and its label. So the next one is going to be different because we want this to be displayed underneath here. Let's visualize this. So we said for the checkbox, it's going to be different because we want the checkbox to be displayed as follows. So we want the checkbox to be displayed in its own row, but in the first column, we don't want anything to be displayed. We want this to be empty, and we're going to display this in the second column. So we're going to add a non-breaking space here. So as we said, we don't need the BR tags anymore because we're using tables. So we said in the first column, We don't want anything to be displayed. So we said we're going to insert a non-breaking space. Remember how you insert a non-breaking space? This will just insert a space like that. Just a space like that. So nothing is going to be displayed in this column. And in the second column, we want the entire control and its label to be displayed inside. So we're going to push it in. We're going to indent it so that it shows that it's inside this column. Save it, refresh. As you can see, this side is empty whilst everything is in the second column. Looks great, doesn't it? So we're going to do the same thing for the button. Add a new row for the button. The button should go inside this row. In the first column of this table, we want nothing to be displayed, so we use the non-breaking space. And then in the second column, we're going to display the button. Let's save this, refresh, and now the button is displayed in the second column and not in the first. Nothing is displayed here. If we go back up and remove the border, check it out. Now it's nicely formatted. If we go back to the previous web page, we see a major difference in that this was not formatted. There was no spaces. It was just so ugly. But then here, everything aligns beautifully and there's spaces in between and so forth. So let's add just a few controls to upgrade this form of ours. Let's add a reset button. So we're going to add the reset button in the second column. Let's bring back the border first so we can visualize everything. I'm going to save this, refresh. So we're going to display the button next to the login button. So we don't enter the code in this column because we want to leave it empty. In the second column, we want to display another button called the reset button. So we change the type to reset, and we can call it whatever we want to call it. So I'm going to call it BNT clear because that's what I want to call it. Doesn't make a difference. I want to display this to the user. Save it, refresh. Now when the user clicks the clear button, it clears the entire form. When I do that, it clears the entire form, which is quite cool. So let's just stop it there. So in the next tutorial, we'll just concentrate on the difference between a checkbox and a radio button. So watch out for that tutorial.